Hi, my name is Yaz,
My name's Riaz.
and today we'd like to talk to you about the education system in the UK and if we feel like it's doing right by its students. So, Riaz, what do you think about the education system and the current way that it's geared? Do you feel it's giving kids the right start to life, or not? Or giving them all the opportunities to express themselves and find out their true calling is in life? And is it accurately assessing them? Or how are things really?
I think there's a lot of benefits from the way the education system is in UK. There's a lot of good things that come out of it. They teach students a wide range of subjects. However, there are many flaws with it. At the end of the day, there are teachers at schools are not always the most interested in teaching their students. They're not as passionate as they could be. There's less funding given to public schools compared to grammar schools and private schools, and that affects the way teachers teach their students and how motivated they are, and which all trickles down to the students and how motivated they are to work.
So like if you look at private school, the average grades. If you look at private school attendance to top universities, it's considerably higher, and you wonder if these children are getting an unfair advantage because of the money that's being put into them, and is everyone really being given an equal opportunity at the start of their life? Now, on the flip side to that, I feel like this is a service that they're paying for. It's a market that has emerged because there's demand for it. Is it really wrong? The same way we have private healthcare in the UK, who's to say? I mean, really, it should be. It should show how evident the public school system is failing that people are willing to go private. We shouldn't really be attacking the private sector. It's just something that's born out of the failure of the public sector, in my opinion.
And it's true. At the end of the day, the private school is better. But if I was rich enough to send my children to private school, would I not want to? If I thought that they're going to have more opportunities in life, more opportunities for better teaching, I would probably be interested in that, sending them there. However, it's important to notice that a lot of students who do go to private schooling have also negative aspects. There's a lot of more pressure on them, and they don't always form to be the best human beings. And well-rounded individuals, but
from what I've heard, like there's a lot of bullying in private schools. There's a lot of like high culture and high society, and if you're not part of this high society, if you're not in the know, if your family hasn't got the connections, you're not going to have a good time at these private schools. So there's something else I'd like to talk about as well. It's like quite early into our lives here in the UK, at the age of year 6, when we're going to our secondary schools, we start to be kind of segregated off. Oh, you've done this entrance exam, or you got this score, you can go to this school, you're going to a grammar school, you're going to a public school. Is it too early to be capping kids' potentials and telling them this is all you can be, or you're not good enough for X, Y, and Z? Do you think it's too early? Do you think it's too soon? Or do you think it's actually appropriate?
I mean, at the end of the day, society is built on competition, and these exams do gear children early on into an environment where they do have to compete, because at the end of the day, which school, secondary school you go into, and which university, and then which job you get, it's all kind of a set pathway from early on. And but then again, I guess it does. You have to decide at which point is it affecting the child's childhood, and how are we not making the children as well rounded as they could be by sending them to these schools and enforcing these exams on them early on.
See, to really counteract your point, you're saying there are these set pathways set for these kids. Is it not too early in a kid's life to put him on the set pathway based on one exam? Do you know what I mean? So let's say they do badly in one entrance exam or the 11 plus or whatever else. Now if they've gone down a completely different route to what they could have gone down if they just scored a little bit better, are we really limiting their potential based on these early exams? You said it yourself. You go to better schools, there's better connections, there's better chances at university, all based on an exam very early on in their life.
the way I see it, the most important exams really are later on. So your secondary school, which exams you go to there. So the year 6 SATs basically.
Yeah.
That's when it starts to get serious. And then when you're in secondary school, you're doing GCSEs and A levels, and then your university exams. But anything before year 6, I think there are a few things like year 3 SATs, and I think they are a good thing, because if you have exams early on, and if there is something going wrong with, your child is not motivated or interested, or if there's the wrong environment, then you can change it early on.
Yeah.
So I can see why some people say it's too early for kids, but I think it's good to start thinking about these things early on.
Yeah, I would argue that it is necessary, because like you said, if there's a problem, if a child is not being taught properly and is falling down the ranks, A, there might be a problem with the teaching, or B, maybe the teaching is good, but there's a problem with the child's understanding or his mindset, and that needs to be addressed too. The grades they get can also be a reflection of what's happening at home, and can be an indication that perhaps a little more aid is needed, and a reassessment of the situation. I do feel at the same time though, so like coming towards maybe like GCSEs and A levels now, that the school that you go to does have a big influence in it. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to a grammar school, and luckily the teachers there, were very motivating. Really encouraged me to become the best I could be, and I can't fault them at all. But I have friends who went to other schools which weren't as prestigious or weren't as good, and they said the teachers, if the student didn't care, then the teachers really didn't care.
And I think the problem is that the government puts more money in those schools that are doing well, and are less inclined to put money in schools that are not doing so well. Yeah. And you just get an increasing gap between the good schools that are doing well and the students that are doing well and the students who are not doing so well.
Yeah.
And I myself travelled to a grammar school an hour away. I would take the tube and travel for a whole hour to a school that's completely far away from my local area. So
that shows you how difficult it can be to attain what you think is an adequate level of education, and look what it's come to.
Exactly.
That people have to travel so far. How old were you when you were traveling so far?
Yeah, maybe like 12, 13. And, and it doesn't just affect education. It also affects like social life. You can't stay out late, and you can't get to know the local community.
Yeah. Even my when it came to my situation, if I didn't get the grades required, there was potential my parents thinking about moving house to put me in a catchment area. It can really turn a whole family's life upside down, because people do think your attainment early in life is going to correspond towards your attainment later in life, and probably with good reason. If you're looking at the statistics, grammar schools and public and private schools and these prestigious schools, they have better outcomes for more success for the people who go there. So in a way you're placing the parents in a horrible situation, where if the child doesn't achieve access to one of these good schools, perhaps they feel like they've done something wrong, and something's gone wrong in that light.
And I think in this day and age, parents are pressured into spending a lot of money on private teachers with the belief that it's going to make the students better. And I personally I had a teacher here, maths tutor, and I was not an interested child in it, but I found a lot of money was being wasted if you don't have a motivated child. And is there really a need for private tutoring really?
Yeah, see that's a difficult one. I see like that as there being a place where parents are feeling like they're not doing enough for their children, and they feel like their children need a better start to life, and they're pouring a lot of money into private tuition. And some people can't afford private tuition, and are those kids going to just be left behind? It's a difficult one. At the same time, I think there needs to be a certain the child needs to show a certain level of motivation towards wanting to be to aspire and reach his own potential. Maybe when they're young, maybe when they're 9, 10, 11, that's not so appropriate. But when they're reaching the ages of 15, 16, 17, that's when these children are starting to mature. They should start taking on some responsibility and kind of know what they want in life.
I personally feel that the government should take a bigger role in improving these schools that are not doing so well. And instead of creating more grammar schools, just try and improve the public schools. and try and encourage the students and provide more opportunities for the students from these lower income areas to do well, to get access to universities, and create networks for these students to see, okay, you know, other students from your schools can do well. And I think at this rate, you know, the gap between the rich and the poor, and the children from the rich and children from poor, is getting larger.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you know, if you are watching this or listening to this, why don't you let us know what your opinion is as well in the comments below. Thanks so much for listening.